Your submission to this inquiry is quite damning in the integrity of the bill, but also the assumptions that the bill is being... the assumptions the bill is being based on, in particular the market mechanism and how much the demand really will be created. I note that a lot of the criticism around the PwC analysis and report that has been used by the Minister to promote and defend this piece of legislation takes up quite a bit of time and space in your submission. I mean, firstly, given everything we know about PwC and the integrity of their advice to government, is it any surprise that it hasn't actually been as robust as suggested?
Thank you, Senator. So Dr Richard Dennis, Executive Director at the Australia Institute. The reason we focused on the PwC report, which, according to evidence given elsewhere, wasn't commissioned by the government, they just volunteered to do it. The reason we focused on that
sorry, PwC did this out of the goodness of their heart, did they?
Apparently. It certainly wasn't commissioned, but the department knew it was coming, according to evidence given elsewhere. The reason we focus on the PwC report is that everyone's talking about this market, and as an economist, markets usually analyse supply and demand. You've heard a lot of people talking about supply. There's not much discussion about where the demand for nature repair will come from. And the PwC report, which, as our submission highlights, is deeply flawed. My PhD's in macroeconomic modelling. I put it to you, this is perhaps the silliest economic analysis I've ever seen. The numbers are presented in 2050 dollars. Usually we discount future benefits to the present. This one actually inflates things into 2050 prices to make them look bigger.
So that's that 137 billion is a 2050 figure?
Yeah, if you imagine we had inflation for another 27 years, it's 2050 dollars that would generate that benefit. But in 2023 dollars, it's about half of that. But interestingly, what the PwC report also says, it has a kind of a pyramid, a hierarchy of abatement, of environmental protection. And it says regulation is the best thing to do. It says government protection is the best thing to do. It says these markets are going to be the smallest last thing you should do. Now, here's the key point I'd make. According to the PwC report, flawed and exaggerated as it is, it says that the benefits of this bill that come from this creation of this kind of market will be smaller than the benefits that flow from people just literally donating money to environmental charities. So the 137 billion figure, inflated though it is, isn't the benefits that come from creating a nature repair market, it's the benefits of repairing nature. And the PwC report literally says that the nature repair market will be the smallest part of the repair, and that donations to charity will be bigger than what we're talking about today. So in terms of demand, everyone's talking about supply and integrity, and you should, because history says integrity will be a big problem. There's two sources of demand in this market. There are people doing what already happens today, and that's donating money to environment groups or who directly go and buy a block of land to protect nature. So there's a philanthropic demand for this stuff, and PwC says the philanthropic demand will be bigger than any market demand that will be created here. But the market demand that will be unleashed or unlocked here is not a market for nature protection, it's a market for nature destruction. That is, if I'd like to destroy some koala habitat over here, I might like to buy an offset over there. So at best, there is no nature repair taking place when the motivation for participating in the market is to do harm in area A so that it can be offset in Area B.
Or to be given a green light to do harm.
Correct. And I'm no expert in the New South Wales scheme, but I was here for the earlier session and I heard you asking about what's the time frame for the New South Wales scheme. To be clear, in the New South Wales scheme, the destruction happens first. This is not ambiguous, this is not unknown. The destruction happens first, and if you can't find an offset, you just pay a fixed fee for harming the environment and you hope that the New South Wales government will go and find some repair. But the risk is on all of the risk, which in any market allocation of risk is as important as allocation of cash, all of the risk is on the environment.
And this scheme mirrors that in a sense that if you can't find a likeable offset, you will be able to just pay.
This scheme will be worse. In New South Wales, the market requires some form of like-for-like offset. So destroy some koalas on one part of the north coast of New South Wales, hopefully maybe protect some koalas somewhere else. At least you've got a koala for koala exchange rate there, maybe. Under the Commonwealth scheme, it'll just be how many possums can we save in this part. It's going to be a net environmental gain, not a like for like, which, you know, if we think about what a market is, markets work well when they're well informed, markets work well when there's lots of buyers and lots of sellers, markets work well when the product is what we call fungible, that is exchangeable, you know, so 3 cafes all selling coffee, that might not be identical, but we might think the coffee is a substitute. We're now going to create a market where certain types of habitat are just going to be exchangeable for entirely different types of habitat, which if it's a big if, you're interested in species preservation, there's nothing fungible about different ecologies.
But this is under the guise of the government's nature positive plan.
Yes.
It doesn't sound very nature positive. I mean, if this is all about allowing for the destruction of koala habitat over here in exchange for, the protection of platypus wetland over there.
Yeah.
Where is the nature positive bit?
Well, it's worse than that, because what's anticipated in this and the EPBC legislation coming later this year is that if an offset can't be found, you can just pay a price to destroy the habitat. So,
like paying a price to, be an elephant, get your trophy hunting certificate.
Literally, and declare it sustainable if you'd like. So, so to be clear, in New South Wales at the moment, there are developers who can't find an offset, so they're just harming the environment, paying some money to the New South Wales government. New South Wales government takes it upon themselves to, as you heard, with no particular time frame, find an offset one day. Not sure where the birds are supposed to live while the offset's getting searched for. Not sure where all the species are supposed to live where the offset's being searched for. But in the New South Wales scheme, it is a like-for-like type scheme. The Commonwealth scheme won't be like-for-like, but both schemes allow basically paying a penalty price for nature destruction. One final kind of point in terms of how this market works. The Minister made clear in her speech to the Press Club last year and in other points that the point of this bill is that the government can't afford to kind of step in, and we need to free up, unlock all these weird non-economic terms, unlock $137 billion or whatever. According to the PwC report, the actual benefits, if you take PwC at their word, of this nature repair market in today's dollars are about $5 billion a year. Fossil fuel subsidies are $11 billion a year. The idea that we can't afford to do this is bizarre. So the PwC report says that government intervention would be more effective. The PwC report says that the benefits of all this market stuff will be quite small. And the budget papers make clear that we find far more than the potential benefits of this scheme.
Can I ask about the potential for existing ACCU projects to be used as effectively double dipping for a biodiversity credit. I asked some questions of the department, and I will ask some more this afternoon, but I asked some questions of the department about this in estimates, and I'm quite alarmed at the idea that projects that are part of the ACCU scheme, that's the carbon credit scheme, could also now get, under this legislation, biodiversity credits, therefore double dipping. That's no additionality there. That's a double dip. I mean, that's a rort.
I think it's a rort, but to be clear, it's a design feature that proponents of both the carbon credit market and the biodiversity market have marketed as an advantage. Like, as I said, everyone's talking about supply. I'm mainly focused on demand. Who would buy these credits? Property developers will buy these credits for offsets. Mining company, anyone that disturbs large amounts of land is going to be the main source of demand for certificates, I should say, in this scheme, credits in the ACCU market. So the demand for carbon credits, the demand for biodiversity offsets, by definition, will primarily come from people planning to do harm somewhere else. And yeah, as I said, I think proponents of these schemes are going to the landholders and saying, not we've found a loophole, but look, this is the plan. We're going to pay you to not chop down a tree that you might not have you weren't going to chop down perhaps. We're going to pay you because it rained and some trees grew on your land. Fantastic, lucky you. In addition to that, have you considered now applying for payments under this scheme as well?
Well, surely if this is meant to be in any way nature positive, then it would have to be additional.
Yes, and I think that, you know, the scientific literature, the economic literature, the recent debate about carbon credits makes clear it's very hard, brackets, if not impossible, to get people to agree on what is additional and what is not. But to be clear, all of the risk is borne by the natural environment. So if I am allowed to destroy 1,000 hectares of habitat, tick, we can measure what I put the bulldozer through. There's no ambiguity about what I destroyed. So if we know with certainty what I destroy, and we're just kind of hoping that what we save is additional, then any measurement problems, any definition problems are all going to be borne by the natural environment. Because we're not having difficulty measuring the land that's getting destroyed, but we're having huge difficulty agreeing about what's actually being protected.
And what your analysis of the PwC report says is that even PwC agrees that this nature repair market is not the right approach, that government regulation is cheaper and simpler.
Well, yeah, what the PwC report says is this is the last thing you would do. So after you had good regulation in place, after you had good government schemes in place to pay people either on Commonwealth land.
So the exact advice that the Minister has been using, flogging, to justify this piece of legislation doesn't actually even say it's the best thing to do.
No, I genuinely wonder how many people have read the PwC report. The PwC report has effectively what's called the mitigation hierarchy in it. Not only does it explain the hierarchy, it puts dollar values next to different bits on the hierarchy. I'm quoting the PwC numbers when I tell you that voluntary donations to environmental organisations are expected to be larger than any unlocking that's coming from a bill like this. That's what the PwC report actually says. Okay, great.
Dennis, is that a legitimate way forward? If we were to bin this legislation, because it seems to be, it's riddled with problems. I can't find one friend it's got at the moment, right? Even the most friendliest people to the government are saying it's not ready to go, it's undercooked. So let's bin this. But we do need a mechanism for getting money into the exact things that Mr Bashara has talked about. Is there a way, from an economic perspective, that could be done that has integrity?
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's exactly right. That this is a classic example of where this is a role of government. The premise of this bill, I would argue, is its biggest flaw. The premise is that the government, quote, can't afford to do what Tim just described. Can't afford. Well, you know, we just spent $650 billion in the last budget on things we could afford. We spend $11 billion a year on fossil fuel subsidies. We just found $1.5 billion for Middle Arm in the Northern Territory. To suggest we, quote, can't afford, as opposed to don't want to, can't afford to help farmers, help other landholders, even just invest money in Commonwealth and state government land. To suggest that we, quote, can't afford it is simply absurd. $300 billion for submarines, $250 billion for tax cuts. So the premise of the bill is we couldn't possibly use the first, second, third or fourth best options. So here we are discussing the fifth best option. And the fifth best option is, what if we learnt to afford to protect the environment by letting people that want to harm the environment pay for the privilege of harming some more environment to provide a flow of funds to the people who want to protect the environment. So this is bizarre. And by definition, it can't be a nature repair market when the demand side of the market is harm. And you're letting, at best case scenario, absolutely best case scenario with no integrity problems and no measurement problems, at best case scenario, I get to harm 1,000 hectares if you protect 1,000 hectares. That is not nature repair.
It's not nature positive.
It's not nature positive. At absolute best, it is nature nothing. But what all of the evidence says is that the measurement problems, the definition problems and the rorts and the double counting mean that we get the certainty of the harm and no certainty on the benefits.
I'd just like to go back to this question of the use of the credits and the offsets and my concern in relation to the potential for this to be rorted through a double-dipping exercise. There is another scheme for carbon credits, the ACCUs. It is perplexing to me that it is the clean energy regulator that is, in this bill, the agency that will administer this market. I don't know what expertise, if any, the clean energy regulator has for protecting koalas, but I can see the huge potential for the clean energy regulator to oversee a double-dipping rort.
Yeah, look, I think there's a number of points there. I think the clean energy regulator is better at protecting the fossil fuel industry than koalas. Let's be honest. In the lead up to the Chubb review, you had the clean energy regulator saying there was nothing to look into. You know, the clean energy regulator went full defence on the integrity of carbon credits when no one thought that carbon credits had any integrity. So we're asking that body, which is yet to perform a significant mea culpa, to oversee a far more complicated task. I think that's staggering. But yeah, if this scheme gets up, there is no doubt that we'll have multiple payments flowing to the same landholders for different government schemes, carbon credits, biodiversity payments. It is designed to create double dipping. And as a consequence, we're going to get an enormous amount of greenwash because the same landholders will be able to claim literally multiple credit for doing the same thing where they might really be doing nothing. They might have just promised to not do something. So to be clear, there's a very real risk of double dipping if this goes ahead because some landholders will be getting paid for carbon credits, will be getting paid for biodiversity credits, and it's possible that neither credits are actually additional, that neither credits are actually helping the environment.
And can I just say, can I just clarify that? So they get a credit, a carbon credit, so that Woodside can keep expanding their fossil fuel pollution. And they also get a credit for allowing a coal mine in the Hunter Valley to destroy koala habitat.
Correct. It's actually worse than that.
Just insert some facts in here. There's an assumption and some risk as opposed to a hard fact that it was designed to enable.
Well, it's being marketed by, at the moment, the people that sell carbon credits are out there warming up the market for biodiversity credits. The same companies.
To the same people as a double dip, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. But the government, in terms of this bill, is that, are you saying that that's what we're doing?
Well, it entirely facilitates it, and the people that will profit from selling the credits are literally out there warming up the market to say, we already helped you get your carbon credit, we'd now like to help you get some koala credits. And to your point...
No, but my specific question,
yes.
You're saying that there's an intention, an absolute intention, going out there saying that you can do one thing and get both credits.
Yes, that's the plan.
And that's intention. You're saying that that's an intentional thing that this bill is doing.
You'd have to ask the people drafting it. It's
and I would say the answer to that is no.
It's inevitable. Well,
I appreciate the risk.
It's not a risk, it's a design feature. To be clear, there's something called credit stacking. This is not terminology I've invented. Credit stacking, where the same block of land might be eligible for soil carbon, might be eligible for some form of avoided deforestation, might be eligible for changes in land management in terms of the way that cows are walking across the land. So you can actually get multiple carbon credits for the same block of land. And in addition to that, perhaps we should call it triple dipping, you might soon be able to get biodiversity credits on top. So I'm not saying anything that's controversial within the industry. I'm describing how it's being marketed on the supply side. But to answer
your interpretation that it's an intention of the government to do this?
Well, certainly the intention of the government to not stop it. You could amend the bill to say, OK, we can fix it for you. I now propose you amend the bill that if land is getting money for carbon credits, it can't get money for biodiversity credits. That would prevent double dipping. This would be easy to fix. So if it was unknown to you or others, it would be very easy to resolve. Just if your block of land is already in receipt of money under Scheme A, you can't get more money under Scheme A, and you certainly can't get more money under Scheme B.
For exactly the same thing, yeah, because I think this is a point. And sorry, Sarah, Dr. Bishop has been
hang on.
You've had the majority of time. I've had about 3 minutes.
Yes, but that was my question to Mr. Dennis, and if I want other people to feed into it, I'll ask. I just want to be clear about this. The issue for me is that it's not just this stacking ability that you've described. Even the same agency is going to be in charge of administrating the program.
Yes. Yeah.
And that agency, in their own submission to us, says they don't have the expertise.
And what we know from the New South Wales example is this is really hard. We know from the Commonwealth example that the Clean Energy Regulator weren't very good at identifying integrity issues in carbon. I'm glad the government announced the audit it did yesterday for 1,000 projects. I would ask the department, do they know the address of those 1,000 projects? I put it to you that there is so little oversight has gone on in this space for the last decade that they probably don't even have a register of where those projects are, let alone whether they've delivered. I could be wrong, but I think that would be interesting to inquire into. So the problem with let's pass the legislation, let's fix it second, let's pass the legislation, let's figure out how the Clean Energy Regulator will gain this expertise, let's pass the legislation so we can figure out how we can audit it, when for 20 years we've been outsourcing audit services, which I hope won't be the solution here. I hope they're going to be insourced, but where's the budget for that? So there are so many issues around integrity that are yet to be asked. And to the point that Tim was making before, and Mr. Fitzsimons, I think it was, there's actually a real risk here because this is a bill that's designed to create demand for offsets, and because PwC says the demand for offsets will be smaller than the amount of voluntary charitable donations already taking place, if all we do is succeed in destroying the integrity of this in the way we have with carbon credits, you might end up driving donations and support out of environmental protection. Because at the moment, there is no barrier to someone donating money to the land, to the bush heritage. There's no barrier to people investing, in inverted commas, in nature protection today. It's just not called investing, it's called donating. And there's no barrier stopping that. But there is a barrier to offsetting one for the other. And there's a very real harm that in creating the offset market, we actually harm the existing flows of money into nature.